Alrighty, tighty. Well, welcome once again to another Friday episode of Show Up Central Oregon. As always, we are joined on Friday afternoon by Cheri Helt. And Cheri, hello, good afternoon. How are you? I got to find the right button and push the right button. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to see you, Matt.
You too. So some interesting news. There's been some great things going on in the state. Obviously, things are always changing. I think between our conversation on Tuesday and today, a lot of things have changed. Let's talk a little bit about the state of childcare and what that looks like for the state currently.
Yeah, so childcare early on was moved to childcare centers were shut down except for emergency childcare centers. And so the emergency childcare centers have been having difficulty making sure that they have enough students and in their facilities to make their numbers really work and providing supplies and access. And so we were able to get a $38 million block grant from the CARES Act, which 8 million of that will be put out into grants for emergency child care facilities.
So that is a good sort of start restart, I guess, more than anything else. What is that? What is going to look like translation wise for the greater childcare community?
Well, that's the thing that I'm really concerned about. Is we were in a childcare desert before this pandemic. We had, for every one slot in Central Oregon, we have 8 children that need that slot. So as your representative, it is one of my top priorities to make sure that we're preserving all of the slots that we had before the pandemic to make sure that they are open afterwards. And when you think about childcare facilities, these really are very much small businesses that are owned by our community members, and they're really important that we provide support for them and their employees, as well as their patrons, which are our youngest citizens that need really safe care while we're at work. And so in order to get restarted and reopened, it is going to be imperative that we have enough childcare slots that we can bring our kids back to safely, and that we support these small businesses through this crisis.
And I know that has been, like you were talking about the desert. I know that's been something you were working on before. I mean, what is that? I mean, just so that people are aware, our deficit going into this was, do you have a quantifiable sort of number or anything that, you could let people know?
Yeah, so for every one slot that was open for a child for childcare in Central Oregon, there were 8 children that needed that slot. So it was a huge deficit to come into. And a lot of employers were talking about the fact that they couldn't bring in employees or expand because of the lack of childcare. And so this is something that I've been working on for the last 2 years in the legislature and trying to fix from every angle possible. But right now, we've kind of shifted this conversation to making sure we preserve the slots that we had before this pandemic, because we are in great danger of losing these slots as our small businesses are really struggling. And one of the things that, we need childcare to help small businesses be able to thrive, but a lot of times we don't think of them themselves as small businesses, and that's exactly what they are. And so we need to make sure that they get the aid and assistance that they need to make it through.
And you mentioned that these were grants, correct? That's what you said, Cheri?
Yeah. So this is going to be $8 million of grants, and then we still have $30 million left in this block grant. And it is my hope that we can allocate that as soon as possible to get that out to those child care providers, because we know the need is greater than even the $38 million. We have asked as a state, our early learning department did a survey asking how much money was needed for capital for the 2 months from every daycare facility in our state. And the answer that they came up with was $80 million. So this is roughly half of what is needed. Um, but we need to make sure that it's imperative that we get this out quickly and take care of our child care facilities because they take care of our children.
And what are those steps to get this out quickly? What is that looking like from a state level?
Well, and that's working with the early learning department and the governor's office to make sure what they're going to be allocating it for and how quickly we can get that done.
Excellent. Okay. So that you'll have more, well, hopefully you'll have more information, I guess, when we talk on Tuesday, just to kind of see where we're at on that.
Yeah, I can keep you posted because I think this is something that is top of mind for many of our working families and our small businesses, our small business owners. When we talk about reopening, a lot of the conversation is who's going to care for our children while we reopen. And childcare is even more of an issue when we're talking about reopening because schools are closed. And so that means the need is going to be even greater than it was going into the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so good. So we'll catch up on that next Tuesday. So I want to pivot. I hate that word. We're using pivot too much these days, but I want to turn a little bit to our current state of healthcare within, I guess, more Deschutes County. I know our numbers are still looking good. We do have a couple of one or two case. I can't remember what the current numbers are at St. Charles, but we do have
I
one.
have those right here if you would
Oh,
like them.
excellent. What are those numbers since you have them right there?
So at St. Charles, we've had 44 positive cases. We currently have one inpatient. In Central Oregon, there has been 73 positive cases. We've had 1,412 negative tests, and we have 115 tests that are pending.
And the one case I know. I don't know if we can. So there's a trial with the Mayo Clinic that I am aware of. That it's sort of we're the first in Oregon. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there was for some of our physicians have been working with Mayo Clinic to secure us being one of the sites that is allowed to use the plasma from patients that had COVID. So the theory, and I am not a doctor and I don't claim to be a doctor, but the theory that I have been, the way it's been explained to me is that if you have COVID and they are able to take blood and spin it down to plasma, they can then give it to someone who has tested positive, and this will give you the immunity from the patient that had previously built their own immunity to it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a boost in recovery, and it's one of the treatments that they're working on to help people recover from COVID faster. And we are one of the sites, and I believe there are 500 hospitals around the country, and we are one of them.
That sounds. I had heard that early trials had had some good success. I actually do know somebody personally that his uncle actually had it, and I think he probably got it too late because he was, I think, but I do know that in some cases it has been fairly successful. So that's a great thing to see more than anything else, for sure.
Well, I think the really awesome thing about this is that, in Central Oregon, we have such great healthcare access, and we have such great physicians, nurses, and healthcare staff that are forward thinking, that are putting out the ability to be part of these trials and test areas to make sure that we have access to the most current care that we could possibly get. And I think that is just really something that Central Oregon has been amazing at and thrives at. And so it's not surprising to see that we are one of the few hospitals in the nation that Mayo Clinic has chosen to use as a site for this program.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's, I guess, moving on from that sort of that testing. Well, moving on to testing, I guess. We are beginning to do more. I know we talked about that on Tuesday, and then you also have a couple of other updates in regards to the testing too.
Yeah. So today, when the governor talked about her programs of how we are going to be reopening, she talked about testing, tracing, and isolating the virus. And so her big thing is to make sure that we're getting all of these protocols in order so that we can open safely. And so around the testing, we know that we have in the air currently, we have 2,160 rapid tests that are coming to Oregon on an airplane. And these are those machines that were talked about earlier, the Abbott testing machines. And we have 11 more testing machines now that we'll have the testing strips. Because the problem was the state had purchased 15 testing machines, but we couldn't get a hold of the strips because the strips were being sent to all the hotbed areas, which is important because they need them more than we do at that time. Mm-hmm. And so now that things are, production is ramping up, we are able to get some of those supplies, and they're coming. And so we have 11 more of these testing machines that will be distributed around the state to ramp up testing. And the number has not changed from last week. We want to have 15,000 tests a week per Dr. Seidlinger, the state epidemiologist. And so he was mentioning that in our state we did 2,000 tests in 2 days. So that would put us pretty close to on par with the 15,000 tests. And so but getting those test supplies are going to be very important for us as a region. And we do have the drive-through testing now. And I think that having more test kits and test supplies will help. We're also getting swabs from the federal government, and those are coming. And we are told that it will be 100% of our needs for swabs, which doesn't sound as important as it actually is, because we were running low on swabs. At one point, that was the barrier to getting testing done, was these nasal swabs. And so I'm glad to hear that those are on their way.
And so you said they're in the air, meaning they will next week, or we're going to be distributing that. So they go to the state distribution center, and then it comes back out to us at that point in time. Is that sort of the process? Okay.
But it just means, I guess what I would like to have people take away is that there are more testing supplies on the way. And that is good news for our recovery, because we know that we need to have more testing to make sure that we can isolate anyone that has the disease. And we can also start testing people randomly, which are not people that are not sick, to see if, what the prevalence of the COVID is out there amongst people who are not showing symptoms.
Yeah. I think that's fantastic. I mean, I know that that's been one of those things that definitely has been needed, is the testing to get up to that level. And it sounds like we're, as a state, finally getting there, which is fantastic to hear, for sure.
I still think we have some ways to go, but I think that this is an important step in the right direction.
Great. Fantastic. Okay. So moving on to a issue that has a little bit more difficulty. I know for you've dealt with it a lot, is this whole unemployment thing. Can you sort of give us an update on where we're looking from a state level as far as filing, and how we're doing to, get the backlog of cases up to current, and kind of what that looks like?
So this has been a really, really hard topic through this entire time. I think we haven't had one call, Matt, where you and I haven't talked about unemployment. It is really heartbreaking when people are struggling and they don't have income, and they're struggling to pay their rent and get food on the table. And so that has really been difficult, and my heart goes out to everybody who finds themselves in those circumstances. I ask everybody to please reach out to me so that I can help you get resources for food and rental assistance while you're waiting, and that I can also help you work through some of the issues of the unemployment claims. That being said, I'm getting a lot more emails this week of people who have finally gotten paychecks and have gotten their claims settled. And so it's getting, I feel like we're getting a little bit more through the backlog. So I'm feeling more optimistic. This week, we also opened the PUA program, which is the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. So that's for gig workers, self-employed, and contractors. And so that has been very helpful for people to be able to fill that out. But with that being said, the people that are now filling that out have been waiting over 7 weeks for income. And so they have really been struggling. So the people that are still struggling with the system are really struggling. And so, my assistant Sam and I have been on the phone and talking to people and getting them help through this system as much as possible. So please reach out if you're still having trouble, because we're here for you. You're not alone, and we're all in this together. But so the struggles that are, more difficult, but the ones that are, there are more cases that are being paid out now than there were last week. So that is good news.
Yeah. The state also, I know, are we up to 800 more workers? Is that what I heard at some point in time, Cheri?
So right now we have 500, and they're in the process of hiring up to 800. So they're in the process of hiring 300 more people to file the unemployment claims and get us ahead of this. And so we will see this week with the new pandemic unemployment assistance program, we'll see how much pressure that put on the system, because that
Mm-hmm.
was a whole new program, because the people that are allowed to apply for this were never allowed to apply for unemployment insurance in the past. And so it's estimated that that is about 100,000 people statewide. And so I'm not sure how difficult this is going to be to process. And so that is, I'm looking forward to hearing about that on Monday.
Got it. Okay, great. So, one final thing. Let's go a little more positive. Let's talk about.
Good.
Let's end the week on a positive note, right? Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Isn't that?
Yeah.
Um, so I am aware of something that it was a press release that just came out, I believe yesterday. And I wanted to, for those people that might be watching it, it's from COE. I always do that. COIC, so Central Oregon Intergovernmental Council. There is actually a new fund, and I'll put this up on the screen, that has just started. The applications will be started May 4th. And so you can go to, actually, it's communitylendingworks.org or communitylendingworks.org if you're interested in finding out more information about this. But it will provide essentially uh, another option for funding. This all came out of the CARES Act and this most recent round of the CARES Act. So again, if you go to communitylendingworks.org, it's an opportunity for businesses to find some more funding and additional funding from that standpoint. So that was a great thing that I know Tom Chanel and I talked about on
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday. Great that we're, as a community, we're putting together some of that too, and that I believe the funding is coming through both the CARES Act, and then I think the counties are somehow related to that too. I believe, if my memory serves. But how? Oh, you wanted to talk about? I can bring that up. But Cheri, what's the? You wanted to direct people also to SBDC as well. Is that correct?
SBA.
Or SBA, which is handled by SBDC. Is that correct? Or because you wanted to talk about the fact that COCC, to contact COCC's SBDC.
Yeah, Ken over at COCC. I wanted to let businesses know that if you are struggling and you didn't qualify for the PPP loans last time, there still are funds available in those programs for the PPP loans, as well as the EIDL loans, which the EIDL loans are a longer term loan. The PPP loan is the payroll protection program, which is to help you over an 8-week time frame of paying your staff and getting them off of unemployment and paying rent and utilities for your businesses. And so I really want to encourage everybody that's out there that owns a business to try and apply for these loans while there are funds, so that we can stabilize everyone in Central Oregon. I think the most important thing that we can do is make sure Central Oregon looks like it did when we went into this pandemic. So that means preserving as many unique businesses as we can, the mom and pop shops that don't have a lot of loan capacity. These are for you, and you can apply for them, and there are funds there. And so I think that's going to be a really important piece to make sure that we get on that. But we can't wait too long because we know that the funds ran out last time.
Yeah, and it ran out in like 2 weeks, I think, last time, or pretty close to 2 weeks. So
Yeah,
it goes,
11 days.
yeah, it goes, man, it's crazy. It
Yeah,
goes very quick.
$350 billion in 11 days. It was a lot of money. So this time it's 310 million, and then 50 million for the EIDL loans. So I'm sorry, billion.
Yeah, I was gonna
It's
say
just
that was billion, right?
it's hard to talk in these big numbers.
I
I
know.
just go back to millions. I'm much more comfortable in
Just
that area.
just move the decimal point three places, and you're good basically at that point in time. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and I also want to say that I think we want to talk about something that is bright and shiny to end the day on. And I think the way our community has wrapped itself around our businesses and making sure that we have jobs for our constituents and our Central Oregonians is really amazing. This program that you brought up was just an awesome example of Central Oregonians helping other Central Oregonians and keeping us preserved during a time of crisis. It's just absolutely amazing what we've done. And then the chamber with their SOS website on how to help small businesses and people just really trying to support businesses through this has just been really a very bright spot in this whole pandemic experience.
yeah, and I wanted to also bring up one more resource that is, if you haven't seen, there's also the SOS Bend, which is sort of the chamber's helping with it, but is a group of people that have basically come together in the community to provide another thing, and they're launching next Tuesday. As a matter of fact, is going to launch for us as individuals to take advantage of helping to support those businesses, which is
Yeah.
fantastic. Anything else, Cheri, before we sort of say goodbye for the weekend?
No, I just want to tell everyone thanks for staying home and staying safe and flattening our curve. And, that's really what's allowing us to be able to have these conversations about what's next and moving into reopening um, in the future. And so I'm really, really just glad to be part of this community of Central Oregon. And I'm really just proud of all the things that everybody's doing to try and help each other out. So reach out if you do need help, and I can help you anyway. I'd be glad to. And stay safe.
Thank you, Cheri. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Matt.
Have a wonderful weekend, and enjoy the. I was going to say weather, but it's not really going to be that great this weekend. But enjoy the weekend, and try to get some relaxation. Aren't you supposed to be relaxing? Aren't you? Isn't that what we're all supposed to be doing?
Yeah. Yeah, that's for next week.
Oh, okay. Kick it down a week. Is that what you're saying? All right, Cheri. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you again on Tuesday for sure.
Okay, thanks,
All right.
Matt.
Thanks. All right. That was Cheri Helt. As always, she joins me Tuesdays and Fridays here on Show Up Central Oregon. Hey, I wanted to conclude this week with giving you a little bit of my thoughts for the week. It's I occasionally do my Matt's moments or my Matt's minutes, whatever you want to call them. I call them Matt's moments. And it's been a decent week. There is some movement finally to open us up. As Cheri alluded to, there was a governor's press conference, and the news was probably not what some people wanted to hear. She kind of kicked the can down a little bit more, but we are at least moving forward. There is hope. Actually, there's always been hope. There's hope. Hope comes from who you are. And I just would like to encourage everybody to spend some time this weekend just with those loved ones, just enjoying the time, enjoying the ability to spend good quality time together. That's the reality. I mean, we've been spending a lot of good quality time together, but just cherish it. And I did something earlier on this week that was talking about reimagining. And I think that's the reality. We need to take into the future what a lot of the things we like about the present. And we need to really, really, really look at that. We need to look at who we're helping on a daily basis, what we're doing on a daily basis, and not get lost in that daily grind once we get everything back up and moving. And the reality, I'm going to be realistic here, is that for a lot of what we do, it's going to take some time. A couple of months, 3 months, 4 months. I don't know how much time, but it will take some time. I'm hopeful that things go quicker than I hope, but I just want to be realistic with everybody. We need to continue to, stay home. Flattening this curve has done wonders, but the last thing we want is a spike that causes us to go into a deeper, 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 deeper hole. So encourage everybody to continue to stay home, continue to do what you need to be doing. And thank you. Thank you for, supporting me and doing what I'm doing. Thank you for supporting the community. Thank you for just supporting each other. I think, as Cheri said, we are truly showing up for Central Oregon, and I sincerely appreciate that. So, on behalf of myself, thank you. All of us need to remember, though, that we need to show up, and it's important. And I just really, really, really appreciate all of you doing that, like I said before. So, again, have a great weekend. I'll be back next week, next Tuesday for sure. And again, on Tuesday, we will be actually, my company, Hand in Hand Productions, will be actually helping oversee a dynamic launch of SOS Bend. So if you haven't checked it out, go to sosbend.com. Again, sosbend.com. And remember, everyone, show up for Central Oregon.